you all very much, and we'll now open up for questions, and I will go first of all to James Cook from the BBC.
Good morning, Mr. Swinney. My question to you is pretty simple. You said there you can't walk on by because essentially your party's a disunited mess. What specifically is wrong with it?
Well, the party's not cohesive just now. We are not together. We're not operating as one big unified team. But what I am absolutely certain about is if the SNP gets its act together, it will be a formidable force for good in Scotland and a formidable force for success in Scotland as well. And that's what I offer. Thank you. Thank you. Colin Mackay.
Have you done a deal with Kate? Will she stand in the contest? And what sort of party and government are you inheriting? Because it seems an awful lot more difficult job that you're taking on than it would have been last year.
I think in terms of Kate Forbes, I don't think I could have been clearer that I want Kate Forbes to be part of Team SNP. I've discussions with Kate. She's a colleague. She's a friend. Why on earth would I not have conversations with Kate Forbes? And Kate will obviously speak for herself about her plans and her intentions. She has to hear what I've got to say as well. But what I want to make sure is that we take forward the SNP in a constructive and effective fashion on the basis that I've set out in my policy prospectus today. And actually, Colin, I don't think the characterisation of the situation, as you put it to me, is nearly as tough as you set it out. There's a lot of good things happening in Scotland today. There's a lot of good things in Scotland happening today that get ignored. And I want to build on the foundations of what the SNP has achieved. We've got a fantastic record in office. Good things are happening today. 100,000 children today are Kate Forbes and I and other colleagues put in place when the Scottish Child Payment was introduced. So I think we've got to have a realistic debate about where Scotland is today, because Scotland is in a great deal better position than the characterisation that is often put about Scotland today. Conor Gillis.
John Swinney, what do you say to people who suggest you're the continuity candidate 2.0? And just going back finally to Kate Forbes, you mentioned those discussions that you've had with her. Will you offer her the post of Deputy First Minister if you are elected?
But I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves.
Well, you said a senior post.
I've quite literally spent the week with lots of you getting ahead of yourselves, and I've got to try and keep you in a sort of sense of equilibrium. I'm very concerned about how much you're racing ahead of yourselves. So we'll come to all of these questions in due course. But I think I've made it pretty clear in what I've said to you today. There's going to have to be change. We just cannot go on as we are today, because that's the reason I'm standing, because if we go on the way we're going to go on today, I think we'll face tough times. But I'm stepping up to the plate to sort that, to make sure we deliver the change that we need to deliver, whether it's in the party or in our activities as a government, or our work in Westminster, or our work in our local authority chambers. It's going to change. But I'll tell you one thing. Once I draw the SNP together as one unified team, the opposition parties in Scotland better watch out what's coming towards them. Peter McMahon.
John Swinney, we've heard why you want to be SNP leader and First Minister, but why you again as SNP leader?
This is because I think the moment's right, to be honest, Peter. I think what the party needs just now is a strong, reassuring, experienced, skilled individual who can create the bridge to the future for our party at a moment of difficulty. And I've been quite open today. I've accepted that my party's in some difficulty. We've just lost a First Minister. Let's be realistic, we're facing difficult times. So the answer to that, in my view, is somebody who's known inside and outside the SNP, who's trusted inside and outside the SNP, who's got a proven track record of being able to bring people together, and if I might say, also a formidable electoral track record under his belt as well. Catherine.
Mr. Swinney, if this becomes a coronation and Kate Forbes doesn't run, do you think there should be a Holyrood election?
I think the Holyrood election question is a complete red herring. Holyrood's a fixed-term parliament. It is established for 5 years. It envisages the fact that there can be changes of personnel during that period, but the electorate are invited to go to the polls to elect a parliament for a 5-year term. That's what we've done. We should see out the term, and I obviously will offer myself, if I'm successful, to be chosen as First Minister when that's appropriate, but I think we should just respect the fact that we operate in a fixed-term parliamentary system where there can be a change of personnel within that period. David Wallis-Lockett.
Mr Swinney, a simple question for anyone running to be SNP leader. Do you think you will deliver independence for Scotland?
Yes. Well, this is where names might run out for me, but.
Steadfast, safe pair of hands, a mediator, these are all words that have been used to describe you. Are these the attributes that will excite and bring in new, perhaps more liberal voters to the SNP?
I think what I represent, let's look back over the stuff that I've done over the years. And, as I said to Peter McMahon, I've got a pretty formidable electoral track record. I'm the longest-serving parliamentarian in Scotland. I've won every single election I have contested with my name on the ballot paper since 1997, and there's nobody else currently in Scotland has done that. So, electorally, allow me to take the view that maybe I kind of know how to win votes. I've also steered the SNP government through some pretty tricky waters in the past. When we became a minority government in 2007, people said, he'll never be able to get a budget through the Scottish Parliament. Well, I got 10 budgets through the Scottish Parliament, so some commentators are maybe a little bit pessimistic about my prospects. So I think when you weave all that together, I think what I can offer is the leadership that can bring people together and can work together and can excite people about the prospects for Scotland and our future. But crucially also, I will be able to bring together a team that will be able to complement all of the attributes that I can bring to it, because we've got a huge amount of talent that I want to make sure is focused on the common good of the SNP and Scotland. Now, we'll take Kieran Andrews up the back there.
Thanks, Mr Swinney. You said that you plan to serve beyond the 2026 Holyrood election. Can we take from that that you plan to serve a full term as First Minister were you to be returned?
That would be my intention, yes. Paul Hutchin.
John, the Greens basically brought down Humza. The Greens are refusing to share a platform with Alaba. Alaba won't bring down the SNP government. Isn't it the case that the independent movement is broken and independence is dead for a generation?
I don't take that view. I think the arguments, and I actually don't think that characterises the debate about independence. What characterises the debate about independence is about how people are living their lives today. And how people are living their lives today is that in this very venture that we're in today, this venture is having to pick up the pieces of the misery caused by 14 years of austerity, control from the United Kingdom government that has delivered austerity. It's having to pick up the pieces from a Tory Brexit that we in this country didn't vote for, which is inflicting misery on people and on business. So the debate about Brexit isn't about, the kind of the transactional debate of the political bubble. It's about how people are living their lives. And what I encounter in my parliamentary service is people who are really toiling, really struggling. And I want to say to them, look, the way out of this is to give our Parliament the powers to change your life, as we've demonstrated we've done in a whole host of other areas, whether it's about poverty or about the environment or about transport or about education or about health. We've done many, many good things, but we could do much more with independence, and that's how the debate should be characterised. Kathleen Nutt.
So you were SNP leader in 2004, and you had to stand down because the party then wanted you to stand down at that time. And what would you do differently? And also, John Curtis, the Britain's top pollster, said earlier this week that you weren't very good as leader at that time. You obviously had a lot of support among the party. So what would you say to his comments, and what would you maybe do differently this time round if you did win?
Well, maybe I should send Sir John Curtis a Christmas card to try and improve things a wee bit. Well, one of my correspondents to me, who's here today, and they will know who they are, wrote to me and said, "You've got to stand. You have to realise that the party you led in 2000 to 2004 is different to the one that exists today." And my correspondent said to me, and if you don't mind me saying so, so too are you. You've got a lot more under your belt in the intervening 20 years. And I have, and I'm a different character to what I was back then. I'm a stronger character who's done a lot of tough stuff. And I think that will be the mark of how I take forward my leadership within the party. And in relation to where the SNP progresses electorally, again, we're in a completely different position. Look at the fantastic team of Westminster MPs we've got. The strength in our Scottish Parliamentary Group, the strength in our council chambers. We've got a formidable group of people working on our behalf, and I intend to bring them together. Seven Clare.
John, after yesterday's exchange with the Scottish Parliament, where Douglas Ross implied that you were dishonest, how can you build bridges with the Tories now, were you to become First Minister? Do you expect you can build alliances with them in the way you did in the first Scottish National Party government?
Let me say that I'm slightly pessimistic about that prospect. Slightly. Now, I'll try. Now, I've got to. If I'm elected as First Minister, I will have to work with other political parties to get business done. We don't have a majority. We can't wave a wand and say that's going to happen. We're going to have to find common ground. And I'll try to create common ground. But, you know, you've got to have people you are prepared to work with you with good grace. Now, I don't think that exchange yesterday, which the presiding officer made clear, was wholly unacceptable in parliamentary business, is the way to proceed. Now, I've said in my comments today, the SNP government will have to change its behaviour in relation to Parliament. It's going to have to be cooperative. It's going to have to find compromise. We're going to have to find common ground. And let me be bold enough to say, we perhaps also, all of us in Parliament, need to find a bit more courtesy in the discourse that is underway. Because that's not serving the public well. And from what people say to me when I'm out and about, they don't like that stuff. They think it's horrible and nasty and not what their members of Parliament should be doing. And you, Severn, if I'm lucky enough to be selected as First Minister, you can come back to me in 3 months' time and tell me if I've lived up to that self-denying ordinance that I've just set out in front of all these witnesses today. Conor Matchett.
John, we're going to have to defend the record of government that spans almost 2 decades, over which you've overseen the finances of Scotland collapse into a 1.5 billion hole, and education standards suffer as well. How are you going to defend that in the face of a resurgent Labour Party that's very much ready to take your position in 26 and take most of your MPs this year?
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shout loud and proud about the SNP record, because it's transforming lives in our country today. That's what it's doing. So if you think about the life of a child in Scotland today, a child is born into a country where every single family gets a measure of support right away with the assistance of the baby box. They are then offered, in some cases at the age of 2, but for everybody at the age of 3, access to the largest early learning and childcare offering, more than double what was in place when the SNP government came to office. They're going into schools that are better resourced than in other parts of the United Kingdom, and crucially, into school buildings where over 90% of pupils are educated in good or satisfactory buildings, compared to 63% when the apparently dynamic Labour government left office in 2007. And then they can all go to the highest level of positive destinations in history, and more Scots than ever can go to university. So the first thing I'll do is I'll start proclaiming the record of which I am very, very proud to have worked so hard to create. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that ministers that act on my behalf will be working ferociously to deliver improvement in the lives of people in Scotland, and I'll be presiding over that. Right, Simon Johnson.
A lot of the fiercest political debate over the past few years has been about what you might term identity politics. What's your view on whether a trans woman is a woman?
Well, I think actually the debate on these questions, if our politics is defined purely and simply by these questions, then I think we're not addressing the core issues and challenges that people face in our society. So today I'm going to address the core challenges and priorities that face people in our society today. Yes, on the left.
Mr. Swinney, it's after around from Scotland. Being called yesterday's man, what's it say about the party that you are the man of the hour and not one of the, if you're forgive me, the younger, fresher faces of the younger generation of SNP politicians?
Well, I'm concerned that a representative of such an august journal is being very ageist about me. That's the first thing I'm concerned about. The second thing is that the aspiring next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is older than me, so you can go away and ask him these questions as well. And the third thing is that the SNP should choose at this moment the leader that's right for the moment. That's the big question. That's the question the SNP should answer. Who's the right leader for this moment? And I've been really candid today. My party's not as cohesive as it should be. And I think the central question for the SNP to answer is who is going to bring the SNP back together again? And I think the answer to that is John Swinney. Yes, my apologies.
You're saying it's the leader for the moment. You may be popular amongst the SNP membership, but polls suggest that Kate Ford is more beautiful amongst the public. Isn't that who you want to lead the party into elections?
Well, I think the really interesting poll, which I think came out this week, is the one that we should pay close attention to. And that's the poll that asked all voters who they thought would do a good job as First Minister. Now, I topped that poll. Kate Forbes was very closely behind me. Both of us, in the SNP, colleagues, together, were miles ahead of Anas Sarwar, and actually an earth ahead of Douglas Ross. So, the conclusion I draw from that is that the SNP has the people who are in touch with the public, who command the public's trust. And I'm at the top of that list, and I've explained to you why I think I'm the best person to undertake the leadership of the SNP. And Kate Forbes, who's a valued colleague of mine, and who I've set out the importance I attach to her participation in any team that I lead, will make her own conclusions. But I think the SNP should be very optimistic about what lies ahead, because our leading figures are a country mile more popular than the Labour Party or the Conservative Party leaders in Scotland. Actually, just while I'm on this particular point, Kate and I have both been on the back benches for the last 12 months. This pair have been in the limelight. Anna Sarwar and Douglas Ross, they've had all the limelight for the last 12 months, and they're hugely unpopular. That's quite a good sign for the SNP. Right, gentleman back.
Mr. Swinney, a factory council declared a housing emergency yesterday in West Barnshire. What would the government led by you do differently to solve Scotland's housing crisis, and would you reverse custody to housing in the North East of Scotland budget?
The challenge with the housing budget is the fact that the capital budget of the Scottish Government has been slashed by the UK Government. There are consequences of that, and we've got to try to make the money go as far as we possibly can do. Now, since the budget was formulated, the First Minister announced just last week additional housing investment. So housing is a big priority. But we've also got to face up to some of the hard realities that if we've got a hostile UK Government that's cutting the funding available to Scotland, we can't magic money out of thin air. Now, the answer to that for me is for Scotland to be an independent country and able to take the right decisions and not be imprisoned by the decisions of a Westminster Government. And that's the case I'll take to the people of Scotland. Right, we've had a pretty good run at things today. Thank you all for coming. There'll be some interviews afterwards, but I'm really grateful to everyone for coming along. Thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you in the period to come. Thank you so much.